I want to show you just really quickly how we can start working with secrets with Kubernetes. Now, secrets are a great way to configure confidential information about a pod or a container image in your cluster. And this is the Kubernetes documentation. We can see that at Kubernetes IO if you want to go and read up about best practices and how to take this a bit further. The basic idea is that the secret becomes a volume inside a pod, which is one of the primitives in Kubernetes for running your code. So there's a few ways that these can be used. The primary way, I would suggest using them as a file mounted on the disk. And we can see here a basic command for creating a secret. We'll try that out. But first of all, I actually want to create a cluster. Use a tool called K3D. This is similar to Minikube, but you can see there it was very, very fast, and it runs inside Docker. So now I should have a couple of nodes. I have a single node. It's not quite ready, and now it is. Okay, and this is running Kubernetes 1.17. At the moment, this is one minor revision behind. What we want to do then is look at this command, create secret. And you can see there's actually 3 different types of secrets that you might want in Kubernetes. You're almost always going to want the generic one. The Docker registry is for when we perhaps want to store images in a private registry and then be able to pull them back down automatically. In this instance, though, we just want to create a secret that can be consumed. And what I would do is kubectl will create secret generic. Oftentimes you'll forget that and you have to type it in again. Here we've got db user pass, and we've got to look over here and see there's 2 files going in, but that probably is a little bit more complicated. So let's start off with just password, and then we've got a couple of other options here, which are the most common would be something like from file. Or from literal. Literal is where we can actually type in the value, and if you're typing in a secret, that's probably going to be in your bash history. There's a couple of workarounds for that, not ideal. So a lot of people will actually use a from file. Now when you do from file, by default it was going to take the name of what's on the right hand side rather than necessarily what you wanted it to be called. So in from literal we can have a key 2 as a literal. But with the from file, it will normally just take the name of the file. So here you can see the example, they're overriding that. Okay, and I'll show you where that name comes into play. Because actually 2 names, the name of the secret, the name of the data inside. And let's go ahead with one piece of data. So we've got password, from literal, and we can go password equals test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now if I want to get that back, we use get secret, output in YAML, and you can see there's this data element of password. Okay. Now if we were to put a password file here, so we put the same content into password.txt, and we just simply did a from file in this way around, we actually give a different name because we've already got password in the cluster. And then we want to put the name of that file. Okay, so now when we get the original password, we can see, yep, it had this data sub-element of password. We get password 1, it had the data element of password txt. However, what we probably actually wanted was that to be called password in the data. And this is how we do it. Okay, and now when we get password 2, we can see it has this .data element of password. Now that's a single secret with a single value, and when we're looking at these, we're seeing some sort of odd text. This is effectively plain text. It's just base64 encoded. We can see the values come back again for us. There was actually a space on the end of this file, That's because I used echo. If you want to put the exact text with no spaces into your secret, you can use echo-n, and then that won't print a new line. Okay, and we can see when I catted that, we didn't get a new line. This has a new line in it. The value where we did it with an echo, from literal, the original one, you can see the content is slightly different because it's got an equal sign instead of a K at the end. So let's echo that and run it through base64 decoder. And you can see it doesn't have a new line, unlike the one where we just had the file. Okay. So now we will create another one, password 3, I think. And we get password 3, we see that it's encoded just like we were expecting it to be, unlike before. Okay. Now these secrets are also available without the YAML format. We can just see which secrets we've got in the current namespace. We can actually go and create a new namespace if we wanted to. We'll call it cloud. Okay, and now let's go and create a password again. Login password, and the argument we can put here is namespace cloud. Okay. Now when we get our secrets in the namespace of cloud, we see the login password available, and if we get the secrets in all namespaces, there's a whole load of things in here to do with running the cluster, but the ones that we cared about, the ones that we created, were there. Now, just like you can create any object in Kubernetes with get, okay, we can also go ahead and delete them in the same way. So we'll delete the secret, and that's gone. Actually consuming the secrets within a pod becomes really quite complex. But those are the two basic things that you need. I wonder if there's an example in this documentation or not. Let's have a quick look. Okay, so there is an example here. And this is a little bit verbose. There might be one that's slightly less verbose. There we go. That's using it in environmental variable. Now there is some discussion about whether there should be environmental variables used for secrets or not. Some people in the Kubernetes community absolutely swear by this. Other people that come from perhaps the Docker community really wouldn't be seen dead doing this, and they would want to mount files on disk. So let's take a look at what would happen if we were to take this cluster and install something like OpenFaz. OpenFaz has support for Kubernetes secrets. It can deploy functions really, really fast. I'm just going to show you what we get if we were to run this command. So once we've got OpenFaz in place, rather than messing about with all this YAML, we can just do a simple CLI deployment. A CLI deployment will create something like this, and this is how in the community we tend to do things. First of all, in the pod definition, we have a volume mount, which is where to put the secret, and then in the volumes for the pod, we're then going to go and give the specifics and what kind of permissions there are for that. So there's a password. Okay, so what we can do is there's two ways of doing this. One is we can do the kubectl secret create. We also have faz CLI create secret create. And you'll see that the options here are pretty similar. We've got from file and from literal. So I want to do secret create. Let's call it S3 key from literal. Use the same value again. Okay, and now that's gone and created a secret, but a Kubernetes secret, just like the ones we had before. And that's in the OpenFaz FN namespace. Get this back in YAML format. We see the value there, and then we can do the echo trick that we did before.
Now the other thing that we can do here is we can actually run a different output command than OYAML. We can do we could do output of JSON path, and here we can specify anything we want within the object. So we want .data and then .s3 key, although I don't know if this needs to be quoted to work. No, it doesn't. Okay. Now that command, we can put base64 decode on the end of it and hit enter. And sometimes what I like to do is just put an extra echo, because passwords generally shouldn't have new lines at the end of them. And so we can see where I went ahead and I did fuzCLI secret create from literal. I was then able to go and get the secret back again. And this JSON path trick is great. As long as you know what the key is called, you can run this and you can get your value back. So within OpenFAS, one of the things that we have is an Alpine Linux image. We can deploy that by saying echo, let's call this echo secret. Give it the image of functions Alpine latest and tell it that it's got permission to the secret S3 key. If I've done all that correctly, and it seems like I have, we've now got a function. There's one more thing actually. We need to tell it what to do. I want it to cat the secret that's mounted at a var OpenFAS secrets S3 key. And OpenFAS secrets are always mounted in exactly the same place. So if you had two secrets, S3 key and S3 access key, both of them would be available here in the file system. When we run a curl, we can see that it's gone and printed the value of that secret back to us. And the interesting bit, I think, is that we didn't have to write this complex pod definition. All we did was a single CLI command line, and OpenFAS generated all the objects. So we can see that it's a deployment rather than a pod, but it will also go and create a pod for us in the OpenFAS FN namespace. Now if we output this in YAML, we'll be able to see, just like we have on the right hand side, the volumes for the pod. This is going to be projected into the pod. It's got a read-only access, and we've got the name of the secret too, and then we've got the volume mount, and that's where we see this path that we talked about earlier. Okay, there's other things that OpenFAS does for you too, and this relatively long YAML file is all generated with best practices. We've got the process that gets run every time we run the container there. And you can have more than one secret if you want to. So that's fuzCLI secret list and create. We can go ahead and remove that now. We could just use k3d delete and remove our cluster. So what we did is we created a secret using a file. We also created one using a literal. We were able to work out how to give specific names for the different secrets we were using, and then we looked at how we could use something like OpenFAS to make using those secrets much easier than writing lots of YAML, and we were able to then deploy a HTTP API basically in a few seconds and start invoking it. So hope this was interesting. Maybe you learned something, or it's sort of inspired you to go off and do something. Do let me know. You can get in touch with me on Twitter or through YouTube. Thanks.